Hello, beautiful One Love Community Care community. It is Stephanie here holding space for the Freebird podcast, and really excited to have Philip Maitreya with us today to share his story. We're both really adamant about One Love Community Care and the mental health and awareness and trauma-informed approaches that are brought through this community and this aspect. So what we love doing in these Freebird podcasts is dropping in with a beautiful interviewee, the person who's here to share with vulnerability their story, so that we can all know how many incredible beings there are out there that you would never have guessed that they've been through the trauma or challenges that they've been through because of where they may stand today. And to give you this remembrance and this that the journey is so important. And sometimes the things that are making us stronger and the challenges are there for a specific reason. So we've got Philip here today, and he grew up in war-torn Sri Lanka without realizing that this was going to have an effect on him, as a child later on in life. Currently, he's a doctor, and he's here to share a bit of his story with us about how he was transformed through his connection to God and Jesus and through faith in general. So yeah, great to have you here, Philip. Would you care to share a bit about your story? Introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm just a simple guy. I guess, just like everyone on this earth, I think um yeah, life has been not been easy. And um, you know, yeah, I guess I'm fortunate. I feel blessed that um I've found a way to overcome those challenges, and I'm still overcoming them, but it's not so much of a burden that it used to be on me. Um, yeah, so you mentioned that, my family come from Sri Lanka. Um, yeah, so so basically, like um, in the early 80s, there was a lot of civil conflict in that country. It's a beautiful country, Sri Lanka. Um, you know, um, yeah, just beautiful beaches, beautiful people. But that country also has two, different religions, major religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, and different ethnic cultures that go back centuries, like into ancient times, where they used to war with each other. And yeah, and during the 80s, there was a bit of a rift between the two cultures, where there was discrimination. I would say, on both sides is generally the case. And my family members were at risk of losing their lives. There were, army tanks would roll into a town, and all of a sudden, at no given um, at,
No warning, right? Yeah.
yeah, and just fire like either shell like bombs, like they're like bomb shells. They kind of like splatter everywhere, or like yeah, just randomly shoot at people on the street. Um, and My parents, like my dad, he he was a police officer in Sri Lanka. He took 1 year off, and he decided to go traveling around the world. He went to Germany, met an Australian man in on his flight there, and that Australians are very, very very kind people, I would say. And even back then, and this Australian man just randomly met him in the plane and was like, "Why don't you come down to Melbourne and stay with us, and see what it's like?" And my dad, I think it was in 1979, he came to Melbourne just for a holiday, and then he thought, when he gets married to my mum, he'll come down here. And so that's what they did. They came here in 81. I was born in 85. But during that period, my mum lost her brother. So there was an incident where my uncle went walking on the street to the milk bar, and there's an army truck randomly started shooting at people, and he was one of the people that got hit, and he bled to death. Um, and
Yes, I'm sorry.
hey, what's that? Sorry.
Sorry, yeah, that's yeah, just walking to the milk bar. Wow. Yeah, challenging. So
Yeah.
your mother's brother is this was while she was still in Sri Lanka.
No, well, my mum was here in Australia at that time. So if my parents had stayed in Sri Lanka, they would have been like my dad would have definitely been um, at risk of getting killed because he was a Tamil person in Sri Lanka. It's a minority race in Sri Lanka, but he was a police officer, and there was a lot of rift happening at that time. Just for context, like Sri Lanka, after the British left Sri Lanka in 1950, um, they basically left Sri Lanka, to deal with its own mess, and they kind of favored the minority Tamil people um, to be in charge of the country and to be, in charge of all the educational systems there. But the majority Sinhalese there were disgruntled about that. And because they had the majority, they eventually took power in government, and then they started introducing measures, discriminatory measures, starting with like certain grades, that you would need to get into a degree like engineering or medicine. The majority Sinhalese people would only have to meet like a lower mark to get in, whereas Tamil people would have to get a higher mark, and just little things like that. And it's led to protests, and then led to more violence basically. So by 1980, things had really erupted in that country, and it was horrific. Just people being burned on the street, and um, yeah.
Mm. And
Uh,
so it's really horrific. You're right. There's many countries around the world that have such war and prejudice, and it must have been really challenging for your father to grow up in such a space, being a minority. But how about you? Did you actually, because I just said that you grew up there, that's what I understood from your story, but you did or didn't grow up
no, no, I didn't. So it was,
there?
I was
Or
born in
generational
Australia.
aspect that you feel like you received that generational aspect of having your parents been through a war strewn
Oh,
country.
absolutely. It's you do take everything on, like it's part of my um you know from my family to my culture. It's part of my being, I would say. Or in this life that I'm in, for some reason I was
Mm,
born into that family and that culture. um and
mm.
yeah.
And what would you say, wanting to bring us more into understanding generational trauma and, this type of thing, myself as well as as a Jew. So I understand deeply also the culture of having been through such challenges from the Holocaust to the current war, whether I'm there now or not. I definitely understand the generational trauma and would love to hear your thoughts about generational trauma and how to break it, if you would be able to share that with some of our listeners, because everyone comes from somewhere beyond Australia. Like so many of us, Australia is not we're not many, as I'm trying to explain, there's so many people who came from immigrants or second or third generation immigration from other countries, that we are here in Australia with. So for them to understand a bit more of that, their issues and their, challenges may not even be from this lifetime. They may be generational. It sounds like that's where your challenges have come from.
Absolutely, yeah. I guess, um, yeah, on a surface level, um, the biggest thing that I had to deal with was victimhood.
Mm,
When things don't go your way in life, instead of actually like um, taking it on as like a challenge and an adventure of some sort. You kind of complain and you go, why is this happening to me? Why me? Why, um,
Okay.
and that was a big, like for me, that instead of actually taking responsibility for my challenges, um, I would um, I would kind of scapegoat it on someone else or a different situation. It's like, oh, it's this person's fault, or it's my parents' fault, or it's my family's fault, and um, yeah, that, and the reason why I was experiencing that um, I would say, is because in my family that they, they had suffered a lot, being in fear, living in fear. And so I don't know like how that actually manifests, but when you're in fear and you actually feel like a victim, in some way that kind of got transferred over to me. And it does, even though I was born in Australia, just through the conversations that I'd be listening into with my parents, um, the conflicts that they had, the grieving, the sadness that they experienced. Um, Also had like family members that, after my parents migrated here, they sponsored family members from Sri Lanka to come and live with us, um, because we were afraid that we would lose more relatives. And so one by one, we kept, like bringing them over, and every one of them came with joy. And we have, in Sri Lankan culture, we have this really close like bond with family. um, but at the same time, it was also, yeah, it also came like every one of the family members would come with their own fear, and we would just replay that situation in our household. Um, so yeah, when you're as a child, when you're growing up, and you're not there in Sri Lanka, but you're actually like feeling all of the emotions, and you're getting wired in a sense to see the world in a certain way. Uh,
Mhm.
and Yeah, that affected me, yeah, my whole life. Yeah, but I managed to really persevere. You know, um, Getting a medical degree was one of my biggest achievements. But I realized that a lot of the things that I was striving to achieve was not for, not for anything that, it was more for actually myself. It was more to give myself value that, if I get this achievement, or if I get this thing, then people will respect me more, people will love me more. Um, all of these things, these are this feeling of unworthiness and needing something external to actually give me that value. Um, that's also something that I see in my family as well, which I took on, or which I had to clear, or heal within myself. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just knowing that you had such luck to be able to bring more of your family over and to, have a big family here in Australia, that must have been very helpful. And also it must have settled in more of the, as you say, the victimhood that you were feeling by aspects of your culture and what your family went through. So I'm just curious if you feel like the aspects of what your father was going through as a minority, if you feel like you've taken a bit of that on, or which aspects are of victimhood, from where would you think that it actually came, and how did you start to move that?
Um, I think the biggest, so victimhood was prevalent in my experience, but I think the biggest thing that I saw in my family, and I think this is also pretty evident, in my opinion, in Sri Lankan culture, is pride. You know, it's like but it's not the positive kind of pride. It's more like proud that I'm in my culture, being educated, having money, having status. Um, yeah, and
So you're saying that your status and everything, is that what you're saying? That's
yeah,
where the pride was?
yes, yeah, yeah. And
Mm.
using that pride to actually feel better over another person. So, or using that value that you've created for yourself to feel like you're above another person. Um, and for some reason, feeling like you're above another person makes you feel good at the expense of someone else. It's like, oh, we're doing better than this family, or this person. Um,
So this comparison aspect is basically what you're talking about. It's the comparison which goes both ways. Yeah, we're doing better than these families, but we're not doing as good as those families. And so the comparison will never stop if one goes into that journey. And I think that most humans do have a tendency to go into, oh, I'm not as good or I'm not good enough, comparing themselves to others. And yeah, as far as money is can be a huge status today. And, I think that choosing to have money for the purposes of what it's going to help you for versus to see it as status is a different aspect. And I think that's what you're getting to, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it doesn't give you like whatever you strive to have for that reason, um it's only like it doesn't fulfill you really. It has an emptiness to it. um and you're gonna go looking for something else to fill the void. So yeah, I found that actually like um being deciding to let go of those things, just to like not care so much about those things. They are important. Money is important. Having a career is important, but not placing any value towards it for yourself. The value comes from your personality or your being, who God created you to be. Well, at least that is what I had to, kind of discover for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. And so, it's almost as if you were freeing yourself from that aspect of feeling you needed to have value and money was your value. So you were freeing yourself from that feeling, yeah? Or even freeing yourself and your family. Did you ever feel like this weight of, having to pay for your family or for more people to come over from Sri Lanka?
I felt a lot of resentment towards my family, because um, my family had like, um, I mentioned this comparison thing. Like, uh, like in my family, it's my experience of it has been like, one of um, that coming back to that pride thing. I've got family members that came and lived with us, and then all of a sudden turned their back and kind of said like, you didn't help us, and um, and we don't really, they don't really, for some reason they don't really want to acknowledge so much the fact that we helped them. um, and then, of course, on the other side, why should, when you help another person, make sure that nobody sees what you do. Do you know what I mean? So, like, it's like I see in my own parents as well. Like there's like an expectation from others that, oh, we help so many people. Why can't people help us back? Um, so there's that side, and then you've got my relatives that are just like, oh no, they didn't really help us. We did it all on our own, and all of this stuff. And I felt a lot of resentment till yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so the resentment, is that what you would say, you know, your trauma is about, that we're dropping in today for our listeners to understand? Is it generational trauma, intergenerational trauma, or is it something else that I'm not quite touching on?
I
Um,
I think it always is generational trauma. Um, I think that we actually we take on, it's just energy that we take on, whether it's thoughts or emotions or experience feelings, like from my parents, from my grandparents. For me, I feel like resentment is in Sri Lanka. That resentment of, feeling lower than another human. Do you know what I mean? Like in Sri Lanka, there was that feeling. It was like oppression. It was, um, you're not equal to us. Um, those kind of, things you see like in South Africa, even in Israel, you know.
and where
Or
in your life have you felt oppressed or resentment beyond this, so that you can show a real live example of a time where you felt resentment or oppression and moved through it on your own?
um, time in my life. Well, when I was studying in Hungary, um, I encountered for the first time neo-Nazis, and I couldn't understand, like, why, based on the color of my skin, would a person see me like with hatred, or like, basically they wanted me out of the country. Um, and it was really because of, I think it was because of fear that, you've got, Hungarians are proud people as well, and they had a great empire, and having foreigners come and move into their land, um, uh, it was, yeah, maybe it caused them fear. Where are the jobs going to come from? These people are going to take over, our country. So, um, yeah, so that I saw that, and it was, when I saw their eyes, it was like, pure hatred, like, um, just like, yeah, basically want to kill me. So I saw that, and then on the other side, I've got relatives as well that, are really resentful as well of my family too. And that's another conversation. But uh, yeah,
Yeah.
like.
We can do a couple podcasts on the whole family, but this is about you, darling. So, could you tell us a bit more about your experience, the courage that it took you to get through this resentment that happened in Hungary, or how did you move through it when you felt that, as you said, for the first time, someone didn't like you because of the color of your skin?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, could you go dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah. So when this happened, when I was less aware of anything, so back then, my way of dealing with that was going to the gym and getting big, and being threatening, and even like fighting back at them. Um, Thankfully, God was protecting me, and I never really got into circumstances that led to me, getting attacked or anything. Um, but these days, whenever I feel resentment, um, I definitely feel it in my body, and I get the emotions and the thoughts of wanting to get retribution back. Um, and the fact that I notice that is what actually, like, stops me from reacting to it, because I'm like, is that actually me, or where is it coming from? Why am I experiencing this feeling? And I just go straight to God. Like, I'll pray, I'll raise my vibration. Um, and I notice that eventually I start to see more, like, sides of what that feeling is, and it frees me from the feeling of hate or the feeling of wanting to get back at that person. But in the moment, when the emotional charge is so high, it's really hard to not react or not to do something because your mind is like tries to convince you that this is a serious thing. Um, so um, that's what I do now. And I still have challenges with that. Um, yeah. Um,
Yeah, beautiful. So when did your connection to God start becoming strong? Would you like to tell us a bit more about the journey of how you came to your faith and coming from, I think you said, two different faiths of your parents, or was it Hindu or was it
No,
Buddhist?
no. My parents are Catholics. Very very traditional, strong Catholics. Um, I was not a practicing Catholic, so I just kind of felt like I was told I had to go to church, and I would see a lot of hypocrisy on the altar, people preaching and not really didn't really feel the presence of God. Um, and then I had like a life change that happened. It occurred when I went to study overseas. My family basically they got conned by a con man, and they lost all of their life savings, including their home. And family was suicidal, and and then that made me start thinking about, well, how do I, like, when you're in a really bad situation, um, I think that's when you kind of start looking for answers. Maybe I'm hoping that there is a God. I'm hoping that I have angels or guides around me, like, because I feel so lost. Um, and that made me explore more of, whether we exist beyond the physical body. Um, and I spent a lot of time understanding the whole New Age space. So you go to psychics and mediums, and just wanting to understand, um, yeah, that world. Um, and then maybe in the last 3 years, I went back to Christianity because I saw a lot of I don't know, the new age space or the spiritual space kind of scared me a little bit when people kind of, um, have so much awareness of things, of God, and they misuse it. And when I went back to Christianity, even though sometimes they kind of limit themselves from being able to see what's out there, there's a humility there that I love, that kind of grounds me and makes me a better human. So I'm actually more open-minded about everything, but um, I feel like I had to kind of plant a flag onto what faith I would stand for, um, whilst also being open, because I have to choose one way or another. I can't just kind of like be everywhere and just be polygamous in a sense, um, in my spirituality. So
Well,
yeah,
spirituality is your choice. So there's this beauty of knowing that you were coming to a point of wanting to drop into to define and refine what do you believe in, what is your true faith, right? And yeah, it sounds like so how, your journey with New Age was mostly through mediums and psychics. And how did that feel to you when you were doing that?
it was incredible because you're like, well, there is actually another realm that exists beyond this physical realm, and had amazing experiences, saw things that I never really believed. Well, I blew my mind how these things are, real or true. But it kind of makes you. It's kind of like the Matrix. If anyone's watched that movie, it's like there is more to what we think we know in this world, but it's hidden. um, yeah, so I loved that, but then at the same time, I just met so many people that abused their power, and I don't like that. I think that God, we can't call ourselves God. I think that starts becoming dangerous. Um, I think God likes us to acknowledge that we are, you know, essences of Him, emanations of Him, but that we're not God ourselves. To say that we are, well, if imagine if every human started saying that, then they'd start doing things on their own terms and cause chaos, you know. Or yeah, if a
You
person,
brought up quite a few aspects just now, one of them being the abuse of power that you said you mentioned. You saw that in the spiritual realm, and yet the abuse of power exists in just about every religion.
absolutely, absolutely,
That
yes,
you also noticed as a young kid in church, and so this abuse of power also might even have to do with that piece that you were mentioning from the beginning about the pride, in a way where it can be too much proud, and the negative side of that, which I wouldn't call pride in my terms, because pride for me is a good thing, but to be egocentric, or to be overzealous of what that those aspects. So when we notice people who have a lot of power, it's actually can become a really big challenge to stay in the right way of spirituality and not abuse that power that they have. So there may be even a part of you that resonates or understands that, from having witnessed the pride that you speak about, that this is something that has happened often, and yet we choose to you want to choose a faith based upon how it feels to you, and Christianity was comfortable for you. Am I right? Is that what you're saying?
well, it's not that it's comfortable. It's like I look at all of the different faiths, and I look at a man, Jesus, who wanted to bring God to the world, but did it in a way where he gave up his life to do it. Like that for me is love. Like if I give up my life for another person, who's going to do that? Like who, if like we're selfish beings as humans, like we're always looking out for ourselves. This is a guy that, wasn't in it for himself. He was like, I want to show what love is, and he gave up his
Absolutely.
life. But unfortunately, you've got, institutions that kind of take, as with everything, just create rules around things and yeah, kind of maybe distort the truth a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. We can't always get the whole truth from anyone necessarily, but there's many truths, as we know. And um if what I can see is that it brought you back to a place by understanding your connection to godliness and to Jesus, and seeing that ability to have such a deep and wide open heart, um that we were calling in those characteristics for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's a role model for me that I can follow. Out of anyone I can choose to follow, that I want to be like, it would be him. So, yeah.
And how was it for your family and your trauma of generational trauma when you made this choice in your later adult years? You said just a few years ago.
Yeah, so I had to go through Christianity because like I love all of the other religions as well, like Hinduism and Buddhism. I love the things that like there's just certain things that they explore that Christianity does not. Um but like because my family were Christian, the only way that I could actually relate with them and heal the trauma in my family is actually to go within that belief system. Um so it actually has helped me a lot connect with my family, and kind of like explain things to them in a way where they would understand it. Because if I said, like, oh, in Hinduism it teaches this, they would go, yeah, but that's Hinduism. It's not, you know, because Christians are very, will only say that, their religion is the only way. And
Well, it sounds like you don't believe that. You may be like considering yourself Christian, but you don't. Do you believe that Christianity is the only way?
I think if you say it's the only way, it's for yourself
Mm,
because you have to stay true to the belief that you have. You can't be half-hearted. But if you start saying that my way is the only way and everyone else's is not, I think that causes separation.
yeah.
And I think that's the thing that people don't get. But that's my opinion.
And how
Uh, yeah.
for you since you became Christian again? What's changed in your life? What would you be able to tell us about how your life has shifted?
Um, so I actually started becoming more involved with the Orthodox Church there, and I found that the way that they preached Christ's message was more authentic compared to what I had experienced in the Catholic Church, and the energy there was pure. It was one of humility, one of love. Um, and by being more involved with my church, it's actually healed my relationship with my parents. So I used to fight with them a lot. Now, actually, like I'm so grateful that I have them with me because you start realizing, like our lives on this earth are limited um, in physical terms. And everyone that we know, they're not going to be here forever. So I started, realizing things that way rather than actually blaming and saying, "Oh, it's my parents' fault that I'm not here or I'm not wanting to be this person," or you know. So Christian, like the church that I'm part of, like teaches me to, just let go of where you need to get to. Just be a servant. Just be happy with where you are and be grateful for the people in your. That's being a genuine human. The moment that you start aspiring for, like I need to be a certain person, I need to do this thing, and it's at the expense of relationships or that I think is not as genuine as actually in my opinion, which is what I was doing. It's like whenever I was trying to achieve something or do something, I would be like, oh, but this person's calling me or this person's in my life or, yeah. I don't know if
Mhm.
that kind of made sense what I was saying.
I guess it sounds like there was parts of you before that were making excuses or blaming, why things were a certain way in your life. And what's changed has been now you have an attitude of gratitude. Did I get you right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Gratitude is huge. Yeah. Um, yeah. Like, it's, like in a business sense or, in a, if you're very career minded, career focused, the reality is that if you want to get somewhere and you want to be someone, you want to materially achieve something, you need to sacrifice things. Um, but I think I'm grateful that I've spent a lot of time with my family instead of actually focusing on those things so much because there's always a cost for every decision we make. And I'm glad that like I think the most thing that we cherish in life is the people that we have in our life. That's the most important thing. You can't get that time back. You know. It doesn't really matter what you have. It's what matters is the people that you have with you. So yeah.
Mm, absolutely. Um, and what would you say to yourself if you could to the part of you that was before this change happened in you when you were in your trauma, in your generational trauma, or what would you have said to yourself if you could see yourself then from this now perspective?
I don't think I would have listened. um,
Usually we don't listen to our higher selves when we're in it or in a deep hole or a dark
yeah,
space, but
yeah,
still
yeah.
to just see, okay, what would myself now, how would I try to reach myself then? Because, we have listeners who are perhaps very curious, but also don't think they can make that leap or that leap of faith that you're talking about, or they may be skeptical or, whatever they're feeling. So if you were to speak to that type of person that you were, how would you speak to them? How would you share in a way that you think your past self would maybe listen a little bit?
Yeah, well, I would say connect with God. The more that you connect with God, all of your worries go away. It's that simple. God is the answer to everything. And when I say God, I mean like higher power, whatever, it is that you believe that brings you closer to love. Um, you just got to focus on that and keep, and you have to like, it's a commitment. Like, we always put God, like last. We, um, we prioritize the day-to-day things we need to do. But that's what I would tell myself, is that spend more time thinking about God, being with God, nurturing that connection. Because what I've found is that the more that I feel the presence of God in me, all of my worries, all of the triggers, all of it just dissolves. And that's actually what causes suffering. My experience has been that suffering is caused by our thoughts and by our, the thoughts and emotions that, and we react to them, and then we start creating a world around us based on that, on what we're feeling and
Like the oldest one of these quotes that I love is, your thoughts become your words. Your words, watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your lifestyle. So yeah, our thoughts are very important. And I noticed you said to your past self, you said to like really reach towards God, or what makes you feel like you're close to love. So what would you say about love and God and the aspects of them? Are they similar? If someone's feeling love, are they feeling this godliness, or how would you experience or explain to someone who might not be a full believer?
Yeah, so love isn't the feeling of is I don't think love um can be explained, or you can't describe it in a certain way. Like people think of love as in like a love in a relationship, or I love a car, or I love this person. Like I don't that's not really love. Love is my experience of love is actually loss. Like um it's I know it's you know what when you like there's a person in your life and you lose that person, or that person dies, and um, and then you realize how much you actually miss that person, like how much that person, um, like how grateful you were to have that person around. Like that is what closely to what I would say love is you only appreciate things when, like, yeah. Again, yeah, it's hard to describe. Another way I would say love is if you look at Jesus. Jesus is love. Everything that he was, everything that he is, everything that he did, all the way through to his death and resurrection, that is love. Um, yeah, giving your life up for another person is love. Realizing that the person that you've lost is gone and mourning that person, that is love. Um, seeing a child being born, that's love. So, um, yeah, it's not the superficial sense of what people make it out to be. It's painful. Love is painful. You know, that's true love. That's God. Um, and I think, yeah, I could go more into it, but yeah,
Well, so you're saying love, God, pain is all the same thing. Is that what you're saying? It's all intertwined.
yeah,
And for you to experience your pain, many people might think, oh, I have so much pain, God's not with me, or there's no love in my life.
yeah.
And, even those who are suffering deeply with, suicidal thoughts or body pains that seem like you can't even move out of bed, you can tell them that, this pain is a type of suffering that is a type of aspect of love. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Jesus says, take up your cross and follow me, which means whatever problems you have in your life, whatever ailments you have, um, just just take it as like bring that cross closer to your heart. Like I would take my crosses and I would be like, I hate the fact that I have this. Why is this in my life? Why me? Um,
Right,
but try to actually turn it around and say, no, thank you for the cross. Thank you for my pain. It's so hard to do, but that's what Jesus says. If you follow me, take up your cross and follow me. Whatever it is, just take it, take
thank
it,
you,
take
Kate.
it.
And I could even say to our listeners, even to invite them to even write a list and write down the things that are your challenges or your pains or your, obstacles right now, whether it's getting off of the drinks or the drugs, or whether it's getting, more happy thoughts, or, write down all the things that are your pains and see if how you can give that away. Whether Jesus is your person to speak to and give your crosses to them or not, maybe write it down and burn it, or find a way to just be like, I'm ready to give away this pain and no longer let it be mine, or say thank you for this pain because it's about to transform you. So yeah, taking pain into a new context, even yeah, even as you said in the beginning, you were moving through a lot of your challenges by working out. And even working out, after we work out, what happens? Our muscles are sore, or we,
Sure.
have that pain of, oh, when the muscles are working. And it's like, that's the pain that you actually want. That's the pain of muscles growing. That's the growing pain of the strength within us, right? So I think that one of the messages that might be coming through is that aspect of knowing that, pain is not something to run away from. When we experience it through loss of a loved one or relationship, which can be just the same as losing a person we love if they're no longer in our lives in our day to day. To mourn is human and important, but not to know our extent of it as well. So what advice would you give to someone who is really ready to let go of their pain, and may or may not have a connection to Jesus? What would you say to them? Because yes, there are here in Australia as well, we do have more of a majority with Christian faith, and understanding that Jesus is such a powerful human being that has through his acts has given so much less suffering to the world. So there's a beautiful being, but there's so many other ways to go about it as well. So I'd love to hear if you have some more advice for our listeners.
Um, well, I'll say that Jesus for me was um, my guide, the person that I chose to follow. Whoever that is for you, that gives you peace, follow that person. But I would say that Jesus is a great example. A saint maybe, um, someone who is a loving, emanating being. Um, uh, that
This
yeah,
is advice is mostly to find someone that you feel really connected to and to follow and revere them. Yes, that's your
yeah. It's like when you go to when you learn a skill, when if you want to be, you want to be an artist, you learn from a person who teaches you that art. If you want to learn to get closer to God, you will go to a priest or a guru. Um, so it's like that. You have these guides that are in heaven now, that are still present with us, and we can connect to them. And so um, got to find one that you resonate with and follow him or her. Um, but like I said, for me, Jesus is Jesus for me. Jesus is the best. So
Okay, beautiful. And um once you made that choice, to follow Jesus? Did everything just land right away, or did it take some time?
Um, yes and no. So yes, but also it's a journey, and you will go through the challenges, but the challenges become easier to carry, because Jesus himself says that, just he'll carry it for you. Just follow him. Um, so that's kind of how God is. You place your burdens on God, and it doesn't mean you're not going to have the challenges. It doesn't go all the way at once. You're always going to have challenges until you die. Like, to be human is part of suffering, I believe. But um, if you are willing to, joyfully take it up, and you got God in your life, then those sufferings aren't as bad. And yeah,
The suffering, I think I believe it's a Buddhist quote that says, we all have to have pain, but we don't, but suffering is optional. Pain
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah. That's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
suffering is optional.
yeah,
So it's a matter of knowing the pain will come, but how we hold on to it or not is our own choice, isn't it? And taking that accountability for myself, I believe there's a million and one different ways to release our pain. Following a person who is of love and light, whether it's a guru, a person alive or dead, Jesus, or someone in your life right now that you resonate with, to follow someone who is coming from love and light is a great vision and idea, a great way to move pain. But there's about a million and one ways to move our pain, so we don't have to be in such deep suffering. And I think that's a wish for most humans, that we don't want to suffer or keep suffering. And yet there may be a part of us that keeps us in that cycle of suffering, that's used to it or even addicted to it, in this self-sabotage or you know um, cycle of control based upon who we're living with or what's happening in our lives. So I'm just yeah, I'm really curious to hear, like, what would you say are some of the biggest changes of who you are now versus who you are before you made these changes of releasing your pain and suffering?
um if you saw me, like, even like a year ago, you seen my face. I'd always be down. Like, you can clearly see in my face that I'm sad. And I've got problems in my life. Um, and um, it's because that's what I was feeling like. It's my thoughts. Everything, my perception of my world was one of sadness, was one of despair. Um, and it's because I wasn't willing to accept the reality that I was in. Um, Now I feel like smiling more, like, I actually genuinely, I'm not putting it on, like, I actually feel happy. I don't feel like that all the time. But um yeah, I just
Your
uh,
demeanor then, like, what's changed? You said a year ago, you said you've already started the process 3 years ago. So if you were to see yourself 4 or 5 years ago and versus now,
yeah.
right? The main
Four,
difference.
4 or 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, it was me taking a selfie and putting myself on Facebook or social media, pretending that I was happy. So trying to put on a smile and make it look good, and because I wanted to promote myself, as the type of guru or teacher. But but I knew inside me that that wasn't really true. I was just putting that on because I had an agenda behind what I was doing, which was, I wanted to wanted to portray myself in a certain way. Um, but like, being embodied in that is actually the is I there's so many things that I wanted to do as a spiritual mentor for people, but I wasn't ready to do it, even though I wanted to do it. Uh, it's because I was lying to myself. I wasn't actually healed from within. Um, and I've still got stuff to heal now, but I feel
It's a never-ending journey, isn't it? And myself as a healer, and most of the people that I know who are wounded healers, there's this aspect of the Chiron journey of the wounded healer. And when is it fully healed? When is it ever fully healed? However much we may be, doing really well, most of those who have been through a hard journey have been through something they survived through in order to help others, you know. So this aspect of you said you wanted to be seen as a teacher or a guru. Are you doing that type of work now, or what's happening in your life now with your doctor, with your degree as a doctor and other like offerings that you're bringing yourself to offer to the world? Would love if you could tell us and the listeners a bit about what's happening now in your life.
yeah. Well, definitely don't want to be a guru. I think my approach to showing people the way is actually one where I don't directly point people to the way and say, this is the way, you got to do this. I just want to do things like by being an example of that. And if people like what they see, then they can always ask questions, and I'm always going to give my heart to whoever. So, um, so that's first. The second thing is, yeah, I'm doing a lot of NDIS work these days, together with One Love Community Care. And I love the work because, I've gone through so much in my life and I can resonate with people that are going through the struggle. And it brings me so much joy to to see that to see them, to see how it's actually not like, no matter what situation you're in, it doesn't have to be as bad as you feel that it is. And I just want to bring that to people. So this, yeah, working with One Love Community Care has given me the gift of that. Um, and yeah, my experience, my medical experience, obviously, I'd like to be, I'd like to um, change the direction of my career more into the mental health space. So using my background knowledge of medicine to assist people with, how the mind works, and what you can do um, to get rid of all of the anxiety that people carry in their lives.
Okay, beautiful. Could you go into a bit more about that to help those with anxiety and
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not, I mentioned connecting with God. That is important, but it's also action as well. So, connecting with God means also looking after your body, being, doing exercise, eating healthy. If you're eating sugars all of the time and eating fatty foods, etc., that actually lowers your mental state. I won't go into the details of why that is, but it just causes a leaking of energy. So there's so many things that you can do to actually raise your mental state, and then you combine that with prayer and meditation. All of that, it lifts your inner being. So yeah, I mentioned, that joy that I now feel in my body. It's because I'm mindful of my energy, of what I put into my body, of keeping myself fit and healthy. You actually feel good when you go for a walk, you go for a jog, you feel refreshed. I do cold showers. Cold showers is another,
great ice baths, cold showers,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it gets you through it. It's a great way to release some trauma. Yeah, great. Yeah.
So yeah, I do also want to mention that I'm also making music as well. So I plan to um, uh, run concerts, and um, yeah, just share music that raises people's vibration just through my expression of God. Um, so yeah, that's kind of like the way that I want to put myself out into the world. Whereas before it was more like I need to be a certain teacher or something, but now I just want to be someone who is of service and do it in a more humble, meek way. I don't want people to. I see people that are gurus and you know, um, these big teachers um, and it's great, that it's great that they're providing a service like that, but that's not me. Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing your offerings. Yeah, we could keep going and going, but I'd love to just give you the option to share anything else that feels true to you to share with One Love Community.
Um, no, I guess all I would say is, if, I think we just need to um, just bring joy to everyone, that we meet. Just show kindness. The world's not like that at the moment. It's people are yeah, like hateful to each other, or it's all about me. Um, but I think, yeah, it feel like it's just such a nice feeling to bring joy to another person, to pour love on another person. And if we all need to do that, because we're not different. We're all human beings. Like, so we're one species. So we should be loving on each other. That's all I'll say is wherever you can, whatever opportunity you have, just give a person a smile, or just compliment another person and just tell them how lovely they are. And that's
Yeah, never know what one smile or one word, how it will affect someone else. And I really also love the timeless quote that, being with someone, just being present, shared joy is double joy and shared sorrow is half sorrow. So yeah, if you see someone, that's great advice to just remember, like, there's many people out there struggling too, and it's so important to just see them as an equal, a brother or a sister, a friend who might just need a warm smile. And shift their day. Thank you so much for that, Philip. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, yeah, I think that's a wrap for today's podcast from Freebird and One Love Community Care. Just a reminder to all of you that One Love Community Care is working with NDIS clients, working with many different trauma-informed approaches for people to receive what they may need to receive. Phil is one of the people working for NDIS for community care, as well as me online. And there's so many other incredible beings that are supportive for you. If you don't know where to start, just contact One Love Community Care and let's see what we can find that works right for you, from a respite to a session to all the different offerings that are out there. Anything else that you'd like to share about that, about your work for One Love Community Care?
I'd say, yeah, this is a great organization, and it's sincere in its intent to bring love into the world, and in the most, like just helping people, not for any other agenda, but just purely just to help people. So yeah, please, anyone who can support us, it would be amazing.
Yes, anyone who is feeling the need and the desire to heal, to receive that smile, we're here for you. And thank you so much, Philip. We'll see you later, and we'll put this up on. This will be a way for you to connect to Philip and One Love Community Care as well in the comments. Thank you so much.